Well, we're back with Dr. Paul Alexander to give us live breaking update on his analysis of what is taking place at Capitol Hill. Today we had the hearing, the first of, I guess there will be another one, the Senate hearing of Bobby Kennedy Jr. for HHS Secretary, something that I pushed for with some other influencers on X, and we got it. And I know there was a lot of people behind it that were pushing for this nomination. But we still got to clear the oligarchs' fortress, okay? The oligarch fortress has many tentacles all over D.C., and it's pretty disturbing when you think about how you always know you got a good pick when both Republicans and Democrats will give pushback on the pick. That's how you know you got a good one. And so joining us to talk about his analysis of what took place today and what's to come is someone who worked in HHS at a high level as a senior advisor for the Trump administration during the pandemic. So Paul Alexander, take it away. How you doing?
Hey, David, once again, thank you very much. And for doing, and I know it won't be too long. It's late in the evening, but first of all, I call on your supporters who listen to this to please always support David. First, find a way, because David is one of the most sane, balanced, informed voices out there. And really and truly, in the beginning with COVID 5 years ago, I mean, he was in media before that, but where I met him was 5 years ago with the COVID pushback, anti-lockdowns, raising questions on the vaccines and a host of reasons to improve health and well-being for Americans. So I think he is on the tip of the spear, and he's one of the few that has remained well-informed, honest, and truthful, and really wants to help America. Many people are in this fight to enrich themselves only. David is not. David is here. It's almost like a spiritual journey, I have realized, when we speak off the cuff. But let me say something, David, that could prime this conversation. Now there's breaking news by Fetterman, John Fetterman. You know, I think he's the senator from Pennsylvania. He's just come out. The Hill is reporting that, and he spoke. He said that the nomination is moot, that he doesn't think that Kennedy would even make it out of committee when they take the vote, because from his point of view and what he's saying is many senators, he didn't do well. Now, I don't know if he was watching another hearing, because I thought basically that Kennedy did well. It wasn't perfect. It was messy at times. But remember what you just said. He had both Republicans and Democrats, mainly Democrats, but Republicans too, coming at him because the reality is Big Pharma, Pfizer, Glaxo, Moderna, Gilead, all of these pharmaceutical companies, they own Washington. And when I say it, and you know it too, David, you're part of the political world too. I am saying it as clear as I can for the listener. The congresspersons, men and women, among those 435 congress people and the 100 senators, they get so much money from pharmaceuticals, from the vaccine makers and the drug makers, that they are in the pocket. When those people call them and tell them how to vote, you need to understand those people sit down and craft the legislation. When a bill is coming to the floor of the House, the bill is not ideally written by the Congress, you know. The bill is written by the special interest groups. They send the language to the House, and the House doctors it up and fixes it how they support. And you might say, well, they sent it to Johnny. Yeah, but you see, Johnny wants to get that bill passed on behalf of pharmaceuticals. Many other Congress people may not be interested in that bill, but they're going to have pork bills coming up next. So when when Johnny brings the bill to the floor, they will vote for it for Johnny. So Johnny will appease the pharmaceuticals. The pharmaceuticals will pay everybody a little their dues for re-elections. And then when they bring their pork, when they want to build a bridge to nowhere, where they want to go 300 miles out of the city and build 10 miles of roadway that going nowhere and spending $1 billion on that, and all their friends and family going and registering trucking companies and paving companies and electricity companies to pave that road to nowhere. It is the biggest, listen, Congress and the Senate is the biggest Ponzi, corrupt, crooked scheme in the world. The United States Congress and Senate. Most of them are crooks. David, you may not like how I speak, but you know I'm a blunt person. So when Fetterman says that it mightn't come out of committee, well, it's because the special interests leaning on the senators right now as we speak at 7:30, 8 o'clock p.m. on the 29th, leaning on them and telling them, well, no money will come. And you see, I'm going to say something again. It's not me trying to educate your viewers, your listeners, because I'm sure they know this. But you have to go there to understand. Because I worked in D.C. and I worked at the HHS for President Trump in his first term as a senior advisor, I was surprised when I went to Congress because you have to go back and forth to meet certain people and etc. Congress people, the congressional representatives, the 435, they are elected 2 years at a time. Every 2 years, the entire Congress House goes up to vote. So they are always 100% in election campaign mode. From the moment they win the election and they get sworn in for a 2-year term, they don't have time to do the people's business. Most of the business is done by the aides. When you go to the office, they have 10 aides, each of them. All kinds of aides. People being paid $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 just to sit around there. All they're doing is on the phone raising money. The congressperson, the senator, and those aides, they spend, especially in the Congress, 100% of their time, 95%, let's say, raising money, speaking to donors, going to lunch during the day, etc. Because before you know it, their 2 years is up. So they spend maybe the first month getting acclimatized with the DC climate and the how to get around those huge buildings that they're working in. After that, they're not doing any work. They're not doing the people's work. After that, they're just having luncheons every day and coffees and social gatherings and wine and cheeses. All of them talking about how much money they're going to raise next and what fundraiser each of them could do and invite each other. That is why when you have a Kennedy come up on the Hill in front of the Senate, Kennedy could have talked perfect sense today. He could have said things that everybody wanted to hear. Okay? And you could have just smiled and said, this is the man. This is the guy who's going to make America great again. This is the guy who's going to help us deal with agriculture, deal with the health system, deal with HHS, deal with CDC, NIH, FDA, HHS, NIAID, all of the agencies. Work across all agencies too. But that don't matter. What matters is the people who picking up their phone and calling a senator and saying, listen, you see that $100,000 I was going to send to you so you could send Johnny and Susie, your 2 children, to camp this summer and to boarding school in September? That ain't coming. And it's as simple as that. You might say, they will sell America out. Yeah. They will sell you out because they're not using their money, their salary. No.
It's just a waste of time for, people. You got to understand that the power structure does not make its decisions based on the Senate. The Senate is owned. It's completely owned by, like you mentioned, the criminal cartel of pharmaceutical companies and food companies. And they don't look at it. People are very naive to think that, when they're doing these Senate hearings that they're what you see is what you get. Those senators are not trying to make up their mind whether to vote. They're just performing, they're just performing for their special interests, the ones that control them the most. And, that I told that to a friend earlier today. I said, I am not convinced that Kennedy has the votes to get approved, and I have felt that way just based on me reading the tea leaves of the kind of folks that you don't have. That's the problem, and part of this is Trump to some degree because while he's doing the right thing by putting Kennedy in there, man, Trump has endorsed so many of these incumbent entrenched senators who are garbage over and over again because he wanted to have the record of he wanted to keep the Senate was the excuse, or he wanted to make sure the party wasn't divided, or he was doing a favor for me. He endorsed Mitch McConnell and all these people, and he's helped keep them reelected all these times. So, that is, to do the hard work to get, he endorsed a lot of these RINOs in the Florida open seats that he made open by the picks he made for the cabinet. And a lot of the people he endorsed early on were RINOs, the same kind of people who would vote no against Kennedy if given the opportunity to. So, if they were in the Senate one day. And so, that some of that goes on it's on his lap for what he's done here. But at the same time, you got to give him credit for at least trying to push a Kennedy type level of truth telling individual into this position. Maybe there's perhaps a way he can do it through a recess appointment if he doesn't get enough votes from the Senate, and that will give him almost 2 years, I think, to get a lot of work done if he does that. So that's a possibility. He may have some kind of backup plan to make him a czar of some type, some kind of health czar. But you can see, look at the difference between Brooke Rollins' hearing and Kennedy's. Brooke Rollins is nominated for Secretary of USDA. Brooke Rollins has a long history of being a Bush acolyte and, establishment Republican kind of person. With Brooke Rollins, it was very easy, questioning, and everything was, everything was perfectly fine because she represents someone who's not going to do anything to harm the owners of the Senate. Okay. And so the puppets, the Senate candidate, these are actors. Okay. And the thing is that Americans really got to stop thinking that they, have, power through these senators and so forth. These things are basically just billboards for whatever corporate, oligarchs have purchased them. They are not in any way, shape, or form kind of sovereign, except for one or two that get in there. They don't usually last, or they don't usually get those specific committee positions that have power. But that's what we're dealing with here. Brooke Rollins will get probably easily confirmed, right? And she'll make sure that pigs can have their tight little cages. She's already got her chief of staff, who's a former seed oil lobbyist. That's a declaration that's a big middle finger to make America healthy again. Is it not, Paul? To put a seed oil lobbyist as your chief of staff that's going to staff all the Trumpian political appointees to this new USDA. She's going to make sure that the seed oil lobby is taken care of. That's a nice big middle finger to children right now. And I'm pretty ticked about that because, we'll see what's going to happen here. I'm trying to stay positive and fair, and trying to stay fair and positive. But, when you're dealing with the state, I have sub-zero expectations for anything good to come. Okay. And so anything that's above that is I guess, positive. But Brooke Rollins is going to make sure that the pig torturers keep putting sick pigs inside of little cages and feeding them garbage, trash and plastics to eat that goes into your children's food and your children's body, and she'll make sure that nobody gets a chance to heal the soil, that farmers can't sell directly to consumers. That's my expectation of her. Now, we'll see what happens, what kind of pressure she can get. But the pressure that MAHA is going to give is not quite as coordinated and as lucrative as the pressure to keep everything in the sick poison state that it's in. The oligarchs that own the American economy, especially when it comes to food, agriculture, and medicine, have less than contempt for the American people. That's clear. They do not care. It's a joke to them. When you trot out the idea of, well, what about the children who are getting diabetes? They laugh. These are psychopaths. They don't care. They have absolute contempt for the American people. And their senators do too. So every time you hear these little clips from these little Republican senators that get these little talking point clips out there and you share them, just remember you're sharing a little puppet of oligarchs that have absolute contempt for you and your children. They would spit upon you in the hospital if you were suffering from the chronic diseases caused by seed oil subsidized into your system. They would spit upon you as you're dying. That's the level of moral integrity we're dealing with these scoundrels, and their little puppets in the Senate. So was that too hard? Because you said you were being too hard. I had to kind of
No, but I
think back to it.
like the passion and the clarity at which you going at it. Because you're right.
You saw that. You work with a bunch of jackals at the HHS. They don't care. They make stuff up as they go.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll say it clear, and I've written this before, and I'll say it now again. Because of my accent, these people thought that, well, he must be a Democrat, or he must be one of my homeboys. So, when we sit down and we have meetings, we go to there's an executive lunchroom on the 6th floor of the HHS. So only the secretary is supposed to enter, the assistant secretary. But their staff allow everybody else to enter. Plus, remember, I was an advisor to the secretary. So your listeners understand the position that Kennedy is going through confirmation for. That's the position I advised. So who knows? Maybe once he's confirmed, because many of us on the side who are waiting to figure out whether we would listen. I have no qualms about saying I have no butterfly wishes in my head that I must get a position. But I am the only person, scientist or doctor, who worked for President Trump at the HHS in his government. No one else, not even Kennedy. They were against President Trump. But I'm just trying to explain the position that Kennedy is going for. I was a senior advisor to it. So I saw on the inside. And let me tell you, people from CDC, NIH, FDA, senior level directors, they would come into that lunchroom. They had access, and we'd sit down, and there had a bunch of TVs all around us, because the news have to be running on all stations throughout the federal building there, because you need on the moment to find out what is breaking. And they would tell me straight up, we work here, we are part of the deep state. Our daily life here is to destroy Trump. And I'd be sitting down eating my little chips, my little fries, my little sandwich, and drinking my coffee. And they think that I'm part of them. And they're talking low and quietly. But I'm sitting there with them. They didn't know that I'm a total Trump acolyte. And so they're saying, we come here daily to subvert Trump. We slow walk everything. We don't even give them what they want. The them was me. They didn't understand it was me they were affecting from the science point of view. But they were saying the truth. They are the deep state. And here's the thing, what people don't understand. What people don't understand is, let's say the HHS building has 2,000 employees on a fully loaded, 2,000. Complete. It's about 7 stories. It's a massive building, 2,000 federal employees. 1,990, just 10 short of the 2,000, are pure Obama Democrats. Pure. I learned that there. I spoke to them. They would tell me listen, you work with Trump. You will get nothing from us. We will do everything to damage you during the day. We will not even let you get a pencil out of the storeroom for your work. Nothing. Not a piece of paper for the printer. Zero. We will turn it off. And don't take it personally, Dr. Alexander. This is about Trump. We want to destroy him and subvert him and his agenda. And if you're in the way, and yeah, they did. I watched them. I experienced it. It was hell. People don't know that I worked for the US government for free. And you might say, what? Yeah. Because when I got there, I was told straight that the deep state, this is how it was explained by my directors, the deep state sent message down that this doctor scientist arrived here working for President Trump and they're not going to complete his hire. And I said, but what do you mean by that? And they said they're not going to put you your human resources paperwork. And it has to be in the system for you to get badges and FBI clearance and everything. I didn't believe, and it's true. I probably spent a week moving around with no security clearance. Then, I don't know who did what. I think we spoke to, what's his name again? The chief of staff, Mark Meadows. My boss, I was sitting there and spoke to Mark Meadows directly. And Mark said he would give a directive that they have to issue my badges and start the FBI process. Yeah, the FBI called me that day and we started the vetting of me. Then they said, we're not going to pay you. That was the most shocking thing. So I asked my bosses, I said, but how could I be working for the government? They said, well, Paul, they said they're going to frustrate you that you would leave because you are a political appointee. You are working for President Trump. And yeah, I worked there months, no pay. And every day my boss would come to me and say, Paul, you need to make a decision, if you told me that you just want to leave, I'd understand and the president would understand. And I said, but why? And they said, because they're not going to pay you. And I kept holding on week by week, day by day, week by month. And then finally in about October 2020, I mean, the public should understand how evil these people are. In October 2020 or so, there was a high-level meeting on the 6th floor. It involved Operation Warp Speed, the logistics of that vaccine rollout. I was not involved in all of that, the rollout of the vaccine and stuff. Plus, the vaccine hadn't come yet. Remember, it was rolled out under Biden. Now, but the military was there because this was a military operation. So it's pure Army and Navy running Operation Warp Speed. Again, I was there. We can have that conversation separate. They were on the 7th floor of HHS. The entire 7th floor of that building on Health and Human Services was Operation Warp Speed, was the military, the United States military. And I dealt with them there too. I was sitting in a meeting, and after the meeting, one of the majors, I don't know if it's a general or whatever, senior person. And as we were leaving the meeting, and I was just walking back to my office, he walked up to me and he said, Paul, I want to have a word with you quickly. And he said, it came to my attention that you are not paid. So at first, I stopped in my tracks and looked at him and said, but how did you know that? And he said, you don't need to worry about that, but I am informed. And then, you come to all our meetings and you give such valuable input for the United States government and this vaccine and all this stuff. And whether we agree with something, because I would have to partake. And I would tell him, and I was raising serious questions then about the vaccines for the entire country. So he said, I find it outrageous, this military man. He was in full uniform. He said, I find this outrageous. He was a doctor scientist too, but in military fatigue. He said, I find this outrageous that you're not being paid. I said, well, they told me this was a decision somewhere in the human resources of the government. And he said, well, listen, we in the military, we will look for some money. I'm sure I could find something in a little bucket somewhere, a bucket of money, and see if I could pay you. And as sure as he told me, he said, because this is not right that you work for the U.S. government, and they're not
Yeah, the
paying you.
Pentagon loses like trillions of dollars, so they've got to have somewhere some little money.
Yeah,
They probably have a little bit of spare change in Area 51 they pulled out for you, you know?
yeah. And then about 3 weeks after that, I got my first paycheck, and I got paid twice, and that was it. And I remember because
Wait, you only
then I
get paid twice? Why?
yeah, I got two paychecks, and that was it. Two
What?
bi-weekly paychecks. And then I went to the human resources, and I said, the pay office, I said, so would I be getting all my back pay? And they looked at me and laughed at me. This is deep state HR. These are Obama people. They say, you should be thankful you're getting something. So all that time I was working before, I didn't get no money for it.
And then what
And
happened after that? They let you go or something, or did you?
well, that was when, but at that time, Fauci and they were doubling down on keeping the schools closed and the children masked. And that was when I had wrote uh, federal government-wide email to all of the health agencies, because they were emailing me, copying me in very high-level discussions, Fauci and they and Francis Collins and Han and all these people, and I was in the conversation. So they were writing about Fauci going out on the podium in the next few days to discuss why the schools must remain closed and the children masked. So I responded to that email after reading and said, look, I'm Dr. This, blah, blah, blah. My background training is this. And I want to say that basically I said that Dr. Fauci's, he's wrong. The science that whatever he's looking at is ill-informed, because the science that I am looking at.
You replied all, huh, to the whole dang thing, didn't you?
Everybody, and I attached about 15 studies.
Goodness.
All of them showing that the masks failed, the children were being harmed from the mask, and the lockdowns and school closures harming kids, and there were some kids that were committing suicide. From there, Fauci and his team and the CDC went on a warpath to destroy me. And one day I came into basically I got a call before I even got into work that day telling me that when I come to the office, HHS, again, the place where Kennedy is being confirmed for if he makes it, I would have to hand in my work laptop, badges, and that's it. I have to resign. And I told them, why would I have to resign? For what reason? And then it became clear. I got calls telling me, Fauci and they in the back end worked the deep state and they moved to fire me. So they're giving me the opportunity to resign. Why? Because I had responded to that email and told them that Fauci. They said you were crazy to actually question Fauci and to say that he was wrong to all of the scientists in government and the NIH and the NIAID where Fauci was the director. So they were going to destroy you, Paul. So you resign or they'll fire you. So what I did was we tried that day. That day, the White House, the Oval Office was with me on the phone telling me don't resign, because they knew from discussions all over that the deep state was moving to fire me and someone else, and that they wanted to tell me just don't come into office for about a week, let it blow over. And I'm telling you exactly my conversation, David. People don't know this conversation. The person on the other end, and this person sits with the president, and the president is sitting right there. I could hear them. He's telling me that our decision is we're going to remove you from HHS and we're going to bring you into the White House to advise the president directly with Scott Adams. So I said, that's the decision. He said, yeah, that's what happened. Give us a couple of weeks to arrange it. You'll get an office in the White House and don't resign. While they told me that, the Human Resources Directorate called me and was telling me, Director of Human Resources, that you must resign now or we'll fire you. And I told them on the phone, while I had the people in the Oval Office on the phone, I put them on hold. I had the other phone in my hand, and I'm telling them, but the president and the Oval Office said that I shouldn't resign and that I will actually be moving out of HHS. They told me on the phone, and we went back and forth for about 6 calls. They said, You don't seem to understand. The president has no power. Trump has zero power on the deep state. We run this place. We run it. We tell you we're going to fire you today by 4 p.m. If you want, resign. Because if we fire you, we're going to put on the government website that you were terminated. If you resign, we will just write your services will no longer be required by the U.S. government. I went back to the Oval Office on the phone and told them the HR is telling me that they're going to fire me if I don't. And Trump people are telling me, do not resign. We are telling you, put the phone down on them and go home. And don't come to the office. We are giving you an order. Don't come to the office for a week. I went back to the HR people and they were not just the HR, David, they were justice lawyers. This was a very serious conversation. They were justice lawyers. They're on the phone telling me that the HR directorate they're on solid ground. They can move to terminate you today by 4 Paul if you don't resign on your own will. And they told me again, Trump and they could say what they want. We run this place and we are going to fire you by 4 if you don't come to the office, bring your laptop, the government issued laptop, bring your badge, bring your everything, and sign a document saying that you resign. And I went, this happened for a whole day, and then maybe around 2 o'clock, I went there and I handed in everything and I resigned. I was so disgusted, overwhelmed, and that was it. And that's when I resigned. And then the election happened, and well, you know the outcome of that.
So you never went to the White House. They never moved you over to the White House.
Not officially, because I resigned.
Yeah.
But you mean if I've ever been to the White House? Yeah, I've had 4 separate meetings there.
Yeah.
No, but if you're talking about officially, the plan was to move me to work with Scott Atlas to advise the president, and as a scientific advisor, but working in the White House. My office was at HHS. But anyway, that's water under the bridge. Right now, what we're witnessing is Kennedy could likely do serious good for the country, even if on a scale of 0 to 100, we only get 10% from Kennedy. That's still going to be major better than what we have now, what we had for decades. So we need to get him in. You know, I just put out a Substack telling people, call their senators. Call the senators. And I believe tomorrow, David, there's a part 2 of this hearing. He has to go in front of another committee. I think if your show could go out to something where you urge your listeners to call the senators in their states, it's very important.
Who are some of the Democrats that seem to be likely to vote for Kennedy? Do you know?
Who are the ones to vote for him?
Yeah, like Fetterman or any of these, Bernie Sanders. Are they likely to defect and vote for Kennedy?
No, they're not going to vote for Kennedy. Fetterman.
Even Bernie Sanders. He's supposed to be all progressive, right?
Yeah, but I listened to the hearing too. I was listening. No. Sanders was leading to Kennedy today. The problem today is the 47 Democrats not going to vote for Kennedy. 0. But the problem now is how many Republicans are going to bail. So we are seeing
probably
for sure
Mitch
Susan
McConnell,
Collins,
Tom Tillis, James Langford, Mitch McConnell, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski. Those are the ones I can think of that are most likely to vote against Kennedy.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. So it's going to be this is a.
Here's the facts of the matter. We've got to realize that we've got to redouble our efforts to promote Make America Healthy Again policies in the media, because this may be a defeat or it could be a victory, but we can't let go regardless. We have to keep going after these issues. It's not going to go away, you know?
No.
Well,
No.
Dr. Paul Alexander, let's leave it here for now. We'll resume when we hear what happens at the next hearing for Kennedy tomorrow. I'd like to get your thoughts again on that if we can schedule that.
Yeah,
okay?
I think the main messages must come out of here. You know, whoever you can. I'm putting out Substacks. I'm writing a bunch of people telling them just call your senator, write the senator office, go on the federal website and do it, because it makes a difference.
Sounds good. I appreciate your time, Dr. Alexander. Where can people find your Substack?
They just need to Google it. Google, go on any search engine, Google Alexander COVID News Substack. Alexander COVID News Substack.
Sounds good. It's great talking to you. Thank you.
Take care. All right, bye.
Bye-bye.